everyone, and welcome back to English Conversation Amelia, the English podcast where real conversations teach you real English. And today, if you stay until the very end, you will understand active and passive voice so well that you will start noticing them everywhere in movies, at work, in restaurants, and even in your own thoughts. So do not skip a single part because we have 100 complex sentences, daily life examples, a surprise quiz, and so much more coming your way right now.
Wow, 100 sentences? That sounds like a lot, Amelia, but honestly, I am already excited because passive voice has always confused me, and I feel like today might actually be the day I finally get it. And I am ready. I have my notebook. I have my coffee. Let us do this.
I love that energy. And honestly, that is exactly the kind of attitude that makes the difference between someone who learns English slowly and someone who makes fast, real progress. Because showing up ready like you just did is half the battle already won. And your notebook is a great idea because today we are going deep. But before we start, can I ask something? Why does English even have two voices? Like, why can't we not just always say who did the action? Why do we need passive voice at all? Because in my language, we just say the person did the thing, and that is enough.
Oh, that is such a great question. And it actually unlocks everything. So think about this daily life situation. You are at work and something went wrong. Maybe a report was sent to the wrong client. Now your boss is angry and he asks what happened. Do you say, I sent the report to the wrong client? Or do you say, the report was sent to the wrong client? Which one sounds safer?
Okay, I understand now. The second one sounds safer because you're not directly saying you did it. So passive voice kind of hides the person who did the action. That is actually very smart, and I can see why people use it in real life situations, like at work or when something goes wrong.
Exactly. And that is just one reason. We also use passive voice when we do not know who did the action, when the action itself is more important than the person, or when we are writing formally, like in news articles, science reports, or business emails. And today we are going to cover all of those situations with real examples from daily life.
All right, I am taking notes right now. So let us start from the very beginning, because some people watching this might be at an A2 level, and I want to make sure they understand too. So, can you explain the basic structure first before we go into complex sentences?
Of course. So in active voice, the structure is very simple. Subject plus verb plus object. For example, the chef cooked the meal. The chef is the subject, cooked is the verb, and the meal is the object. The chef is doing the action, and we know exactly who did it. This is active voice, and it is direct, clear, and energetic.
Okay, that makes sense. The chef did the cooking, so the chef comes first. Now, what happens when we make it passive? Because I always get confused with where everything moves.
So, in passive voice, we flip it. The object becomes the subject. So, the meal was cooked by the chef. Now the meal comes first. Then we use the verb to be plus the past participle, which is cooked. And then we say by the chef at the end. But here is the beautiful part. We can even remove by the chef completely. and just say, the meal was cooked. And the sentence still works perfectly.
That is actually beautiful. So you can make a complete sentence without even mentioning who did it? That explains so many things I have heard in English that confused me. Like when the news says 3 people were arrested without saying who arrested them. That always seemed strange to me, but now it makes total sense.
Yes! The news uses passive voice constantly. A new law was passed. The building was destroyed. Hundreds of jobs were lost. In all of these sentences, the action is what matters, not who exactly did it. And this is one of the most important things for B1 and B2 learners to understand about how English actually works in real life.
Okay, let us get into some complex sentences now because I want to challenge myself. What is the difference between a simple passive sentence and a complex passive sentence? Because I feel like those might be harder.
Oh, great mindset. A complex sentence has 2 clauses connected by a conjunction or a relative pronoun. So instead of just the book was written, a complex sentence would be the book that was written by a famous author became a bestseller even though it was rejected by 12 publishers before being accepted. Do you see how many ideas are combined in that one sentence?
Whoa, okay, that is a lot. So there is a passive inside another passive inside a complex sentence? Was written, was rejected, being accepted. They are all passive forms, but they look different. Why does being accepted look different from was accepted?
Perfect observation. Being accepted is the passive continuous form used after prepositions like before, after, without. So you say before being accepted, not before was accepted. And was accepted is the simple past passive. They are both passive, but used in different grammatical positions. And this is exactly the kind of detail that takes your English from B1 to B2 level.
Okay, let me try to make my own sentence with that. The project was finished by the team after being delayed for 3 months because the budget was cut by the management. Is that correct?
That was absolutely perfect. You used 3 passive structures correctly in one complex sentence, and it sounded completely natural. Was finished, being delayed, and was cut. I am genuinely impressed because that is B2 level English right there, and you just made it up on the spot.
Really? I cannot believe I just did that. Okay, so let us keep going because I want more examples, especially from daily life situations, because grammar examples in textbooks always feel so boring and disconnected from real life.
I completely agree. And that is exactly why this podcast exists. So let us talk about situations you face every single day. Let us start with the kitchen. The dinner was being prepared when the guests arrived unexpectedly. So the table had not yet been set and the candles had not been lit. Can you identify how many passive forms are in that sentence?
Let me think. Was being prepared, that is past continuous passive, had not been set. that is past perfect passive, and had not been lit, another past perfect passive. So there are 3 different passive tenses all in one situation about cooking dinner. That is wild.
Brilliant. And this is so real, right? You can imagine this scene perfectly. Someone is cooking, guests arrive early, chaos begins. This is something that happens in real life. And passive voice describes it in a very natural, flowing way that native speakers actually use when telling stories.
But wait, I have a question that kind of frustrates me. When I am talking to my friends in casual conversation, do I really use passive voice? Because it feels very formal, and I do not want to sound like a textbook when I'm just chatting with someone at a cafe or something.
That is a really honest and important question. And the answer is yes. You absolutely use passive voice in casual conversation, but it sounds more natural and relaxed. For example, your friend asks, "What happened to your phone?" And you say, "It got dropped in the sink," not "I dropped it in the sink." Got plus past participle is the casual passive that native speakers use all the time. Oh my goodness! It got dropped, it got broken, it got stolen. I have heard these a million times, and I never realized that was passive voice. I always thought passive voice was only for writing and formal situations, but it is literally in everyday casual speech. Exactly. And this got passive is everywhere in daily life. The party got canceled. My wallet got stolen on the subway. The cake got eaten before I could have a piece. The match got rained off. All of these are informal passive voice, and they are completely natural in spoken English at any level from A2 upwards. So, can we go through some more daily life categories? Like, can we do work situations, school situations, home situations? Because I think hearing passive voice in different contexts will really help it stick in my memory better. Absolutely. Let us start with work, because this is where passive voice is used most frequently in English, especially in business settings. The meeting has been rescheduled because the proposal that was submitted last Friday has not yet been reviewed by the senior management team. This is a very common type of sentence you would hear or write in an office environment. Okay, I want to be honest. If my boss sent me that sentence in an email, I might understand most of it, but writing that myself would make me very nervous. It feels like a lot of moving parts, and I am afraid I will put the wrong tense in the wrong place.
And that is completely normal. But here is what I want you to remember. You do not need to get every tense right the first time. What matters is that you are understood. And as you practice more and more, the right forms start to feel automatic. Language learning is not about perfection. It is about progress. And you are already making incredible progress today.
You know what? That actually helped. Sometimes I put so much pressure on myself that I forget to just try. Okay, so let us keep going with work examples because I really need to improve my business English.
Good. Here are more office passive sentences. The client was informed about the delay before the contract was signed. All emails are being monitored by the IT department. The new software will be installed on all computers by Friday. The report must be submitted before the deadline, or the project will be canceled. Each of these uses a different passive form: simple past, present continuous, future, and modal passive.
Modal passive? I did not even know that was a thing. Must be submitted. Will be installed. So you can combine modal verbs with passive voice too? Can you do that with other modals like should, can, might?
Yes, all modal verbs can be used with passive voice. The problem should be fixed immediately. This medicine can only be taken with food. The package might be delivered tomorrow. You ought to be told the truth. The decision could have been made differently. These are all modal passives, and they are extremely common in both speaking and writing.
Wait, could have been made? That is 3 words to express one passive idea in the past. Could have been plus the past participle. Can you give me a daily life example of that so I can really feel how it sounds in a real situation?
Of course. Imagine you had a car accident because you were driving in bad weather. Later, you say to your friend, the accident could have been avoided if the road had been gridded properly. But the warning signs had not been put up by the council in time. Do you feel how natural that sounds when you are telling a story about something that went wrong?
Yes, it sounds natural when you say it, but when I try to construct something like that in my head in real time, I get stuck because there are so many decisions to make. Which tense, which passive form, where to put by, when to leave it out. It is overwhelming sometimes.
I hear you. And here is the secret that most grammar books never tell you. Native speakers do not consciously think about which passive form to use. They just feel it through years of exposure. So the more you listen to English podcasts, watch English content, and practice speaking, the more your brain starts to feel what sounds right without consciously analyzing it. And that is the real goal.
So you're saying that at some point it becomes automatic? Like I will not have to think, okay, this needs past perfect passive. I will just say it naturally?
Exactly. And that moment comes faster than you think when you are consuming quality English content regularly. Which is exactly why podcasts like this one are so valuable for language learners, because you are hearing grammar in context, in natural flowing conversation, not just reading rules in isolation from a textbook.
Okay, I am motivated again. Let us do school and education examples now. Because a lot of people watching this might be students, and they probably use passive voice a lot in academic writing.
Oh, great! School and academic English is absolutely full of passive voice. The experiment was conducted by students from 3 different grade levels. The results were recorded and analyzed over a period of 6 weeks. It has been proven that students who are given feedback regularly perform better than those who are only tested at the end of the term.
I notice in that last sentence there is an active sentence at the beginning, it has been proven, and then 2 passive sentences inside it, who are given feedback and who are only tested. So you can have multiple passive structures inside one sentence connected by relative clauses? You are thinking at a very high level right now. Yes, that is exactly right. And academic English does this constantly. One sentence can contain relative clauses, passive voice, perfect tenses, and comparative structures all at the same time. And that is what makes academic writing feel complex and formal compared to everyday speech. So when my professor in university writes those long sentences that I have to read 3 times to understand, it is not because they are trying to confuse me. It is just because academic English is genuinely structured differently from conversational English. Exactly. Though I will say some professors definitely make things more complicated than they need to be. But yes, the passive voice heavy structure in academic writing exists for a reason. It removes personal bias, focuses on the research rather than the researcher, and gives writing a more objective and authoritative tone. That makes me feel better about university reading, actually. Okay, let us move to home and family situations, because I want to see how passive voice sounds in everyday domestic life, like things that happen at home.
Perfect. Home is actually full of passive voice in everyday speech. The dishes have not been washed yet. The children were already put to bed when you called. The groceries need to be bought before the weekend. The house is being renovated and we cannot use the kitchen. The electricity was turned off for 3 hours and all the food in the freezer was ruined.
Oh, wow! Every single one of those sentences is something I could actually say or hear in my own home. The dishes have not been washed? I say this to my roommate like every week, but I never thought of it as passive voice. I just thought of it as a normal English sentence.
That is the most wonderful thing to hear as an English teacher. When a student realizes that what they already say naturally is actually advanced grammar. You are already using passive voice in real life, and now you are learning why it works and how to use it even more effectively and accurately.
Okay, but now I am getting a little bit frustrated with myself because if I am already using some passive voice naturally, why do I still make mistakes when I try to write it formally? There must be something I am missing.
The gap between speaking passively naturally and writing formal passive correctly usually comes down to 3 things: getting the past participle right for irregular verbs, choosing the correct form of to be for the right tense, and deciding when to include by and when to leave it out. Let us quickly go through some tricky irregular past participles, because that trips up even B2 learners.
Yes, please. Irregular verbs are still a struggle for me. Can you give me the passive forms with daily life examples so I can connect them to real situations?
Absolutely. Write becomes written. The letter was written by hand. Break becomes broken. The window had been broken during the storm. Steal becomes stolen. My bicycle was stolen from outside the supermarket. Take becomes taken. The last seat had already been taken when I arrived. Speak becomes spoken. 3 languages are spoken in that household.
I am writing all of these down. Written, broken, stolen, taken, spoken. Can you do a few more? What about forget, give, know, see, and understand? Because I use those a lot.
Great choices. Forget becomes forgotten. The reservation was forgotten, and we had to wait an hour. Give becomes given. The wrong medicine was given to the patient by mistake. Know becomes known. This restaurant is known for its incredible pasta. See becomes seen. The suspect has not been seen since Tuesday. Understand becomes understood. The instructions were not clearly understood by most of the participants. Each of those feels like a complete story in one sentence. The wrong medicine was given to the patient by mistake. I can picture a hospital scene, I can feel the tension, and now I will always remember that given is the past participle of give because it is connected to that vivid image. That is exactly how memory works best. When grammar is connected to emotion and vivid images, it sticks permanently. This is why storytelling and real life examples are so much more effective than memorizing grammar tables. And this is the philosophy behind everything we do on this channel. Let us talk about passive voice in news and media now, because I am trying to improve my English by reading news articles, and I notice the headlines always look different from the sentences inside the article.
Great observation. News headlines use a special shortened form of passive voice, where the verb to be is often dropped completely to save space. So instead of 3 people have been arrested, the headline says 3 people arrested. Instead of new vaccine has been approved, the headline says new vaccine approved. This is called the headlinese style of writing.
Oh, so when I read a headline and it sounds like something is missing, it is not bad grammar? It is intentional? The newspaper is deliberately leaving out the verb to be to make the headline shorter and punchier?
Exactly. And once you understand this, reading English news becomes much easier because you will stop being confused by headlines and start reading them fluently. Inside the article itself, full passive voice is used, so you get both styles in one newspaper, which is excellent reading practice for B1 and B2 learners. Can we do some passive voice sentences from different topics that might come up in conversation? Like health, travel, food, technology? Because I want to be able to speak about all of these topics using passive voice naturally. Yes, let us do health first. The patient was examined by 3 different specialists before the diagnosis was confirmed. The new drug is being tested on a large group of volunteers. It has been recommended by doctors that sugar intake should be reduced significantly. The operation was performed successfully, even though complications had not been anticipated. Health language in English makes me nervous because the vocabulary is difficult. And if I make a grammar mistake in a medical situation, I am worried it could cause misunderstandings. Do you have any advice for using passive voice in health contexts specifically?
Hope in health contexts, passive voice is used so frequently because it removes personal responsibility and focuses on the medical process. So learning set phrases like I was diagnosed with, I was prescribed, I was told to avoid, I have been referred to a specialist. These will take you very far in any medical situation in an English-speaking country.
Those phrases are gold. I was diagnosed with, I was prescribed, I was referred to. I am adding those to my phrase bank right now because those are exactly the kinds of things I might need to say at a doctor's office or a hospital.
And notice all of those phrases are simple past passive, with I as the subject. So you are the patient, and the medical professional is doing things to you, which is why passive works so naturally. I was given a prescription. I was told to rest for a week. I was sent for an x ray. All very natural and very common.
Let us do travel now, because I travel sometimes and I would love to be able to speak and understand English in airports, hotels, and tourist situations more confidently. Travel English is absolutely packed with passive voice. At the airport, your flight has been delayed by 2 hours. Your seat has been upgraded to business class. Your baggage will be loaded shortly. All liquids must be placed in a clear plastic bag. Passengers are requested to proceed to gate 14 immediately. All passive, all extremely common.
Passengers are requested to proceed. That is so formal. I have heard that announcement so many times and never realized it was passive. And your seat has been upgraded? That is the best thing you can hear at an airport. And now I know it is present perfect passive.
And at the hotel, the room has been prepared for your arrival. Your reservation was made under the wrong date, but it has been corrected. Breakfast is served from 7 to 10 in the morning. Guests are not permitted to smoke in the rooms. Again, all passive, all completely standard hotel English.
I noticed that breakfast is served. That is simple present passive, so it is used for things that happen regularly or always. So the tense of the passive changes depending on whether something is a one-time event or a regular routine, right?
Outstanding. You just discovered one of the most important principles of passive voice tense choice entirely on your own. Yes, simple present passive is used for facts, routines, rules, and regular events, while past passives are for completed one-time events, and future passives are for planned upcoming events. You are thinking like a grammar expert now.
I honestly did not expect to understand passive voice this deeply today. I thought it was just a grammar rule, but it is actually a whole system of thinking about actions and who does them and how important each element is. It is almost like a philosophical choice about what you want to emphasize.
That is a profound way to put it, and you are absolutely right. Every time you choose passive or active voice, you are making a decision about emphasis, focus, formality, and information structure. And fluent speakers make these choices automatically and constantly, which is why passive voice is not just a grammar point, but a fundamental part of how English communicates meaning. Let us do some really complex sentences now, like the most complex ones, because I want to challenge myself and push to the B2 level with passive voice. I feel ready after everything we have covered.
Excellent. Here are some genuinely complex passive sentences. The policy that had been introduced by the previous government was immediately criticized by economists, who argued that it should never have been approved without being thoroughly tested. Count the passives in that one.
Let me go through it carefully. Had been introduced, past perfect passive. Was criticized, simple past passive. Should never have been approved, modal perfect passive. Being tested, present participle passive. 4 passive constructions in one sentence. That is impressive, but also a little terrifying.
A little terrifying is perfect because it means you are at the edge of your comfort zone. And that is exactly where growth happens. Let us do another one from a technology context. The app that was developed by a small startup has been downloaded by millions of users since it was featured on a popular review website. And it is now being used in over 50 countries.
Technology English. That is very relevant to my life. Okay, I can see was developed, has been downloaded, was featured, and is being used. Past passive, present perfect passive, simple past passive, and present continuous passive all in one sentence about a tech startup. This is the kind of English I want to use on my LinkedIn profile.
And you absolutely can. Sentences like that on a LinkedIn profile or in a business email show a very high level of English proficiency and make an excellent impression on employers, clients, and colleagues. Passive voice in professional writing is genuinely a career skill, not just a grammar exercise. Okay, we are coming toward the end now, and I want to make sure I summarize the key things I have learned today. Can we do a quick recap before the quiz?
Perfect idea. So, the key takeaways from today are: first, passive voice exists in all tenses and with modal verbs. Second, in passive voice, the structure is to be plus past participle. Third, casual speech uses got passive for informal situations. Fourth, academic and professional English uses passive voice to focus on actions rather than people. Fifth, headlines often drop the verb to be in passive constructions. Sixth, choosing passive over active is a communicative choice about emphasis and formality.
And seventh, passive voice is not just a formal grammar rule, it is something we use every single day without even thinking about it. In our homes, at work, when we travel, when we talk about health, and even in casual conversations with friends.
Perfectly said. And that seventh point is perhaps the most important of all, because it means you are already living inside passive voice every day. You just needed today's episode to make it visible and give you the tools to use it more consciously and accurately, which is exactly what this English podcast is all about. I feel so much more confident now. And I want to say to everyone watching, if passive voice has always confused you, do not give up. Because today I went from being confused to actually understanding it deeply and being able to make my own complex passive sentences. And if I can do it, you absolutely can too. That is the most encouraging thing you could say to fellow learners. And I want everyone watching to know that this kind of breakthrough moment is available to all of you. It just takes the right explanation, the right examples, and the right community. And that is exactly what we are building here at English Conversation Amelia.
Before the quiz, can I ask one final question that I think a lot of people wonder about? Is it ever wrong to use passive voice? Like, can you overuse it?
Great final question. Yes, passive voice can be overused, and it can make writing feel vague, evasive, or unnecessarily complicated. Good writers and speakers balance active and passive voice depending on what they want to emphasize. If you want energy, directness, and clarity, use active voice. If you want formality, objectivity, or to de emphasize the agent, use passive. The best English uses both skillfully.
So it is not about choosing one over the other. It is about understanding when each one serves the communication better. And with practice, that judgment becomes natural, just like everything else in language learning.
Beautifully put. Now, before we get to the quiz, I want to ask everyone watching, what is your biggest challenge with passive voice? Drop it in the comments below because your question might become the topic of our next episode. And make sure you like this video if it helped you because it genuinely helps more learners find this content, and that means more people getting the English education they deserve.
And I want to add, share this video with one friend who is learning English right now because passive voice is something that every English learner struggles with, and this episode genuinely explains it in a way that I have never heard before. It could be a game changer for someone you know.
And we would love to hear in the comments, do you prefer to use active or passive voice in your own language? How does your native language handle this concept? It is always so fascinating to hear how different languages solve the same communication problem in different ways. So please share below.
Also, if you found this episode helpful, subscribe to English Conversation Amelia, because every episode is designed exactly like this: deep, practical, real English for real-life situations. Not just grammar rules from a textbook, but living English that you can actually use tomorrow.
All right, everyone, quiz time. These questions are based on everything we covered today. Try to answer them in the comments below, and I will reply to as many as I can. Let us see how much you have learned. I love this. I am going to try to answer them too. Let us go. Question 1, Level A2. Change this active sentence to passive. The teacher corrected the homework. Write your answer in the comments. I think it is the homework was corrected by the teacher. Did I get it right, everyone? Let me know in the comments. Question 2, Level B1. Fill in the blank with the correct passive form. The new bridge blank for the past 2 years, and it blank by next summer. Write both answers. This one is harder. I think it is has been being built and will be completed, but I'm not 100% sure about the first one. Tell me what you think in the comments.
Question 3, Level B2. Identify all the passive forms in this sentence and name their tenses. The project that was approved last month has already been delayed twice because the materials that were ordered have not yet been delivered by the supplier.
Okay, this is a real challenge. I can see was approved, simple past passive. Has been delayed, present perfect passive. Were ordered, simple past passive. Have not been delivered, present perfect passive. 4 passives? Did I get them all?
Bonus challenge for everyone. Write your own complex sentence using at least 2 different passive tenses about something that happened to you this week. The most creative and correct answer gets featured in our next episode, so get writing in the comments right now.
And remember, there are no wrong attempts, only practice. And every sentence you write is making your English stronger. So do not be shy. Just write something and let Amelia and the community help you improve.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us on English Conversation Amelia. This English podcast exists because of learners like you who show up, ask questions, take notes, and refuse to give up on their English journey. You are amazing, and we will see you in the next episode very soon. Keep learning, keep practicing, and remember, your English is getting better every single day.
See you next time, everyone, and do not forget, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let us grow this community together and help English learners all around the world. Bye for now.